When Indiana Jones and the Great Circle released on the Xbox Series X and PC back in late 2024, it was quite the spectacle from a visual standpoint. Not only that, but the throwback story, tight gameplay, interesting puzzles, and fun combat made it just an awesome experience. Fast forward to now, and Indy's available on the Switch too. But is this something that you should even consider, especially if you have access to other platforms? Let's get into it. Danny from the Famicast here. Today, we're taking a look at the Nintendo Switch 2 version of Indiana Jones and the Great Circle in this review, talking about visuals, performance, the Switch 2 exclusive mouse controls, the physical release of the game, and more in this in-depth review. Just a quick note before we get started here. As you can see from the box that I have for the game, I picked up the Japanese version of Indiana Jones and the Great Circle. Well, if you're an English speaker and you're looking to pick up the game in Japan, there's really no need to worry. The Great Circle has full English support, so that's not something that you have to worry about. Personally, I just thought it was cool just to have the Japanese version of the game, and I live here too, so there's that. Anyways, let's go ahead and get to the rest of the review. Indiana Jones and the Great Circle is set in 1937 after the events of Raiders of the Lost Ark and before The Last Crusade. The story here picks up with an intruder breaking into Marshall College and stealing a very rare artifact. Puzzled by this, Indy ends up traveling across the globe, visiting the likes of the Vatican, Egypt, the Himalayas, Thailand, and more in search of the thief. Now, this leads down a rabbit hole involving Nazis, Italian blackshirts, questionable clerics in the Catholic Church, and a handful of mysterious artifacts. These tie in with something called the Great Circle. This basically handful of historical sites around the globe that form a perfect circle. It's up to Indy and his companions to basically figure out its secrets. The story beats are pretty much in line with what you would find in the older indie films and stuff like that, with plenty of action and intrigue. I think things here are very, very solid. Exploration plays a pretty big role in the Great Circle. Controlling Indy from first person, you're tasked with hunting for relics, solving puzzles, traveling vast areas, and taking notes on your findings. These are kept in a handy journal, which can be accessed with the select button. Now, going through these is paramount to making progress in the story or the side quests. Now, although most of the adventure will be spent in first person, there are times when the camera will pull back and give you a look at Indy in third person. I mean, these are usually for things like climbing areas and a couple of other things like that, interacting with some puzzles and sometimes shimmying over narrow passageways. Honestly, I prefer third-person games in general, but I really enjoyed what's on offer here in first person. The whip plays a pretty significant role when exploring the various areas throughout the game. It can also be used in combat, a little bit more on that later. Basically, it can be used to scare dogs or disarm enemies, and in other areas too. It can also be used to climb out of reach areas. You can swing across chasms, and you can even yank down and select items and stuff like that. I think it's a pretty fun mechanic that brings that Indiana Jones feel to the game. Additionally, other tools will be at Indy's disposal, including a camera which can give hints, a lighter, an underwater breathing device, and a journal. Now, the journal here is extremely useful as it's basically like a hub which contains documents that you find on the adventure, and it's also a portal for upgrades and maps. Like exploration, combat is handled via the first-person perspective. Melee attacks are encouraged throughout the game, though a handful of firearms are actually on offer. Punches are assigned to ZL and ZR, while blocking can be initiated with L, and you could use the whip with R. Now, starting out, fistfights are pretty simple, but things get progressively more difficult during the experience. Now, sneaking up on enemies, especially ones with firearms, is paramount here. Using various items scattered throughout the stages can be picked up, used here too to beat the crap out of some guys. All these pack a little bit more power than just standard fists. And the blocking and counters here take a little bit of getting used to, but I think once you get the hang of it, it feels pretty great. As mentioned previously, firearms are available in the game. Indy even comes equipped with a revolver. However, players are basically guided more toward using other methods. Still, using guns feels pretty good, though enemies can take quite a few hits before being taken out. Gunshots also put enemies on high alert and make them come at Indy with a vengeance. Now, on the standard difficulty settings, there are some times when one shot can take out Indy, so it really behooves you to take these guys out with stealth, avoid them, or just make sure your shots don't miss if you opt for your gun. While turned off by default, both gyro aiming and mouse controls with the Joy-Con 2 controller are supported. You kind of have to dig through the menus a little bit to get this set up, but I think it's great to have these here. With these newly implemented mouse controls via the Joy-Con 2, players can assign this to either the left or right controller, and of course alter things like sensitivity and stuff like that. Personally, I prefer using standard controllers, so I didn't play too much with this. One odd thing I noticed, and it could just be from my lack of playing around with it for too long, was that the mouse controls could not be used in the settings menu. It's not really a huge deal or anything like that, but it just seemed a little bit odd. So I don't know. Regardless, whatever your preference is for controls, there are several options to choose from, which I think is a plus. Like a handful of other third-party titles have already proven, games can look and run admirably on Nintendo's latest hardware. Now, the same could be said with the Great Circle. The biggest drawback here, when compared to other versions, is the frame rate. In the Switch 2 version, things typically hang around 30 frames per second, with some occasional dips, mainly when the game autosaves. Now, if that doesn't bother you, I think you'll feel right at home with Indie on the platform. Environments here, I think they're still full of detail. Period clothing looks spot on, and I think the faces animate pretty nicely. Now, on the other hand, there are issues and a few oddities that you will pick up on when you play the game in either handheld or docked. For example, animations of characters are a little bit choppy when seen from afar. I think foliage takes a little bit of time to load in, which sometimes kind of weird. Textures occasionally aren't loaded in when you look at things close up, and more here. Now, even with these issues, and it might be a deal breaker for some of you guys out there, and I'm not trying to crap on the game, I'm just trying to tell you what I've observed. I still think that the port to the Switch 2 here is still impressive, but if visual fidelity is a concern of yours, you will be disappointed. Just to mention here too, you probably already noticed, especially in this section of the video, but I've been playing some comparisons of the Xbox Series S version of the game, which is what I played originally in 2024 and early 2025, compared to Switch 2, so you can kind of see the visual differences between the two systems here. Obviously, playing on PS5 or a Series X or high-end PC, you'll get even better results, but I just wanted to show you guys some of the differences there. As for handheld mode, Indie looks alright when playing on the small screen. However, some of the finer details are just a little bit lacking. Shadows look a bit worse here and pop in, particularly in the jungle environments of Sukhothai. This is just much more noticeable. I think the textures feel a little bit flatter, and you will notice a visual downgrade from playing in dock mode. I mean, simply put, it's a little bit rough. I can't comment on how the Great Circle runs on something like the Steam Deck, but even with the game being scaled back on the Switch 2 in handheld mode, it still runs at 30 frames per second pretty consistently, outside of the occasional dips that I mentioned previously with dock mode. The audio here is a pretty strong point of the experience. I think it offers a lot of familiar tunes, or at the very least sound-alikes, that you can hear here. And yeah, all this stuff just really throws you into the world of Indiana Jones. The crack of the whip, gunshots, sounds of temple doors, and more all play their parts very well here. I think the voice acting here is fantastic, with great performances from Troy Baker's take on Indy, and his other companions and the villains that you meet too along the way. They're all done really well. I think this is about as close as it can get to a new adventure with Indy in his prime, and I think they just nail this atmosphere here perfectly. Although quite rare for many third-party publishers, at least within the first year of the Switch 2's life, Bethesda opted to include the entire game on the cart here. Technically, you could play the game right out of the box without any updates at all. However, the Day 1 patch, and others depending on when you get the game, these are necessary if you want to play the game with mouse controls or Polish language support or whatever else they add down the road. Even then, the downloaded patch here is minimal. For the Day 1 stuff, I can't talk about anything after that, but this only takes up 300 megabytes of space, and it's a pretty quick download. Of course, if you're looking to get into the game's DLC, that will be a separate purchase and download from the eShop. Still, the fact that Bethesda took the plunge with what's currently the largest cart capacity available is pretty awesome for physical collectors. Unfortunately, they did not offer a collector's edition this time around, like they did with the Xbox and PlayStation releases. But it's still great that you can play this thing right out of the box. Now, just for fun, I've actually included some shots here of the awesome collector's edition that I just mentioned. I ended up picking this up in late 2024, and man, the box for this thing is absolutely massive. I was going to pull this out specifically to shoot some footage for this, but it's just so big and everything is so stuffed up here in my closet, I just said no. But everything that was inside the box is outside in my little room here, so I'll just kind of show that off here too. I mean, this thing came with a globe that has like this secret magnetic latch that opens up. The Xbox version that I picked up too, this comes with a digital code inscribed on the All Maker Relic replica, piece that's inside of like a steel case here. Now there's even a journal with a note from Marion. And also, since I never had the chance to do this either, I can actually show off my laser discs from the original 3 films that I picked up here really cheaply. You know, I love this series. Well, at least the first 3. I think the 4th one's kind of eh. And the 5th one is just weird. But anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed this quick look. I have no other reason to show this off except for here. And if you want to see something specifically about that collector's edition, we have a video specifically for that. I'll have that linked up down below. The Switch 2 version of Indiana Jones and the Great Circle is a great port that does a lot of things right, but still isn't without flaws. If you care about frame rate, the 30 frames per second in this version will likely bother you. Some of the camera effects, like the bokeh effect in some cutscenes or occasional stutters during autosaving, are a little bit annoying, but they don't detract enough from the game to derail enjoyment. The story is great here, and if you're looking to pick up the physical version of the game, everything, minus the day 1 patch, I guess, is ready to play immediately after you insert the card. Indie fans owe it to themselves to play this one, and curious adventurers shouldn't hesitate taking the plunge. My final score for Indiana Jones and the Great Circle on the Nintendo Switch 2? 9 out of 10. But let's go ahead and turn things over to you guys. Did you pick up Indy on the Switch 2? Have you already played it on other platforms? What do you think about the game? Sound off with any and all comments down below. We'd love to hear from you. As always, thank you guys so much for checking out this video. If you like what you see, please feel free to drop this one a like. And if you feel that we've earned it, consider dropping us a sub here. And if you want to take things even further, you can always support us over on Patreon, where your contributions will get you access to over 100 exclusive podcasts, ad-free videos, and more. For more from us, be sure to check out our website, Famicast.com, and our YouTube channel for our bi-weekly live podcasts, video reviews, looks at cool games like this, and a whole lot more. Again, this is Danny from the Famicast. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you later.